in Donald Trump, who was trying to lift himself up by rapists. He started by calling them drug dealers. Then he talked about banning Muslims. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a violation of fundamental American values and fundamental American principles. And so we need to fight back and stand up and fight back hard. Are you all ready to do that?
Yeah.
That is not what the United States of America stands for. We know we stand for inclusion. We have to live up to our promise of equal rights and equal justice and equal opportunity, and our history has been the struggle to get there. And we've come a long way, and we got a long way to go. But we're not going to let people like Donald Trump drag us back. And we were reminded just recently about why it is so important to take back a majority in the United States Senate. Because we always knew it was important, but Justice Scalia's death made it crystal clear. Because within 12 hours, the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, said in an outrageous statement he would not even consider the nomination of President Barack Obama without even knowing who that might be. That is outrageous, but he couldn't get away with it if he wasn't in the majority in the United States Senate. So we got to change that. We got to change it. And let me tell you a little bit about Justice Scalia. I just want to mention two cases. 5-4 decisions. Citizens United. The decision, one of the worst in our history, which said, corporations are people too. We're going to give corporations the same right to spend unlimited amounts of money to try to buy and rig our elections. And as a result, you've seen super PACs, and by the way, I've been filing lawsuits against these organizations. I don't know if you saw the other day, but a Koch brothers related group is now coming after me, and I'm going to keep coming after them. Another Scalia 5-4 decision was the Voting Rights Act, where they took a huge bite out of the Voting Rights Act that had passed the United States Congress, which opened the door even wider to those people around the country who are trying to win elections, not by getting more people to vote, not by increasing the circle of our democracy, but by people who try to put up more walls and barriers to vote. So that's what's at stake. I'm so proud that all of you here played a role in making sure here in Maryland, we actually expanded the circle of democracy and said that people who have served their time should be able to vote just like everybody else. In fact, it's an outrage for people. Now, all of us know we had to get that done in Maryland by overcoming a veto of Governor Hogan. And that happened because in 2014, we learned the hard way what happens when we're not all engaged and on the front lines. We ended up with Governor Hogan, who pulled the plug on the red line in Baltimore, holding up $70 million of funds for our schools. And so, as we go into 2016, let's not make the mistake of taking the Senate race for granted. We need to be out there on the front lines and leave no stone unturned and get every vote in every part of the state. Are we going to do that?
Yeah.
Now, it's my view that when we're campaigning around the state, we have to go everywhere in the state. We have to go to every neighborhood and every precinct. And I believe that what voters are looking for are candidates and people who not only express and talk about progressive values and not only vote for our progressive values, but people who have a track record of actually translating those values into action. Because at the end of the day, what matters to voters, what matters to families around the table, is not the talk in Washington or Annapolis or in Rockville or in Baltimore. It's trying to make a difference in their lives. And throughout my time in public life, I have fought hard to keep that in mind. So when I worked with Carol Price, who was a mom who lost her son to an accidental gun shooting in Maryland, we made Maryland the first state in the country to require that guns sold here have embedded trigger locks to prevent those kind of accidental gun shootings. I never got more hate mail in my life from the NRA, but we got it done. And I was proud to work with the environmental community to pass the law that prevents oil companies from drilling in the sensitive areas around the bay. Rich Matalino, who before he was a state senator was an advocate, came to me and we talked about the fundamental injustice of people who could be denied a job or accommodations based on the person they love. And I was proud to lead the fight in the Maryland Senate to make Maryland one of the first states in the country to prevent discrimination based on who you love and based on sexual orientation. And Maryland, I was proud to be part of the movement in Maryland, and we passed the referendum on marriage equality. When I went to Congress, one of the first things I did was find out that the big banks were taking a big bite and huge profits out of the student loan program. It was outrageous. And so actually on a bipartisan basis, I led the effort to stop that. And then Nancy Pelosi asked me to become assistant to the Speaker. And together as a team, we did a lot of good things, and all of us in this room should be proud of it. All of us who were part of the election of Barack Obama back in 2008, because we passed the economic recovery bill that stopped the free fall and helped turn the corner. We passed the Wall Street reform bill, which, however imperfect and how much we need to continue to improve on it, I'll tell you, there are a lot of people that are trying to roll back the clock on that bill as it is. And of course, we passed the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, which provides health care. By talking about it or just voting about it, as part of a team to get it done in a very closely divided Congress. And when the Republicans took over, my colleagues elected me to be the top Democrat on the Budget Committee to go up against the Ryan Tea Party Republican agenda, which was trying to roll back the clock on all those accomplishments and more. And so, with the help of people in this room and people around the country, we have stood up against the effort to roll back the Affordable Care Act, by the way, 64 times. They've tried it in the House of Representatives. And their efforts to cut Social Security and voucherize Medicare. And we've been successful in standing up to that. But we need to continue to move forward. And that's what this election's about. And I want to just focus on three things where I know we can all make a difference. First of all, building an economy in Maryland and America that works for everybody, not the folks who are already at the very top. And this is not something that can happen by magic. It's going to require us to work together on all sorts of fronts, starting with early education and making sure every child, no matter what their neighborhood, has the very best early education, the chance to get a great K through 12 education. And for those who want to go on to college, and everybody who dreams to go on to college should be able to, and be able to graduate debt-free. We've got to get that right. And I'm pleased to be a co-sponsor of a bill in the House with Elizabeth Warren to move us in that direction, because it's not good for anybody. It's not good for students, and it's not good for the surrounding community when people get out of college and they're already saddled with a big debt. We also need to make sure that when people go to work, they can make a living wage and a living income. Because it's a scandal in the United States of America, you can work full-time and still be below the federal poverty level. So yes, we need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We need to have equal pay for equal work, for God's sakes. It's the year 2016. Early paid sick leave. But we also need to change our tax code, which right now is stacked in favor of people who make money off of money and against people who make money off of hard-earned pay. And I put forward a plan that will do that, puts a fee on Wall Street transactions and uses those savings to invest in people and increase people's wages and income, people in the middle class and people who are working their way to the middle. We need to end the scandal of mass incarceration in the United States of America. And be spending much more on schools and less in prison, and this has not been a new issue for me. I've been working on criminal justice reform issues before we had this important conversation we're having in the country right now. And it has been a great mistake in the United States of America to treat substance abuse, which affects every community in every part of our state and our country, to treat substance abuse as a criminal justice issue when it's a health care and an addiction and a mental health issue. Black Lives Matter movement, which is an important part of the next step in the United States toward equal justice and equal rights and equal opportunity here in Baltimore, here in Maryland, and around the country. Finally, we need to make sure that we address fundamental issues of our future in the country and around the world, and address climate change and environmental justice. We need to protect our planet. It is our obligation. It's not a future issue. It is raising costs to all of you and all of our friends and family right now. And I put forward a bold plan in the United States Congress to do that. And if you think about it and think about it around the world, it is those most vulnerable communities that are most susceptible to the ravages of climate change, just like here in America. Places like Flint, Michigan, and forgotten parts of Baltimore City that are most vulnerable to the environmental injustice of lead paint and lead poisoning. And so we need to work together to conquer those issues. Let me close with this, because we're in a Democratic primary. As I said, I think it's really important that we focus not just on the votes that are cast or the words that are said, but whether we're going to be able to translate our priorities into action at the end of the day. And I'm very proud that the statewide organizations that have looked at this race have endorsed me for the United States Senate. The SEIU, unanimously statewide, a union that sticks up every day for working men and women and families, has endorsed me in this race. As has the United Auto Workers, which is working with us to try and bring back more jobs in manufacturing here to Maryland. We had conversations about immigration reform. I'm proud that Casa de Maryland, the largest immigrant rights organization in our state, unanimously endorsed me for the United States Senate. And when it comes to environmental issues and climate change and environmental justice, I'm proud to receive the endorsement from the Sierra Club, which looked at the candidates, not just their voting records, but actually their record of getting things done. And I'm proud to have the support of the Sierra Club, as well as the firefighters of Maryland, the people who were helping rescue our homes when we're running out. So I'm proud to have the support of these organizations and these men and women who are not just with us on how to vote on these issues, but have a personal stake, as we all do, on getting the ball over the finish line. So I know that's what young Democrats care about. They care about turning our dreams and our vision into a reality. And the fact that you're engaged in this election gives me great hope that we will continue to move this community and this state and this country forward. Thank you all very much for the attention.
We'll get a couple of questions. I'm going to ask the congressman if he will exercise judgment beyond the package to filibuster yet. So if you have a question, you can just raise your hand, and I will call on you. I see that you asked one earlier, so I'm going to call on the young lady over there. Yes, please.
All right. I know you've endorsed Hillary. Will you switch over to Bernie? An endorsement. Today.
I want to say something very clear. I love Bernie Sanders. I worked with Bernie in the House. Since he went to the Senate, he just became the ranking member on the Budget Committee in the Senate, so we work together closely. And if you look at my sort of platform and ideas, a lot of them sync up with Bernie Sanders in terms of my economic policy ideas. And so I'm really glad that he is a part of this conversation and he's made a great run of it, because I think that whoever is the nominee would be a good president and a good candidate for the country. I have been supporting Hillary, and that's not a difference among the candidates in this race, in the Senate race, but I've been supporting Hillary because I do believe that she will be able at the end of the day to help us get more of these things over the finish line. And I know all the back and forth on this, and I totally respect differences of opinion on this issue. I will tell you that I've been very focused on the Senate race, and I hope when this Senate race is over, however it works out, I'm looking forward to working hard to make sure we have a United States Senator from here, Maryland, who's a Democrat, and that we have a Democrat in the White House, whoever it might be.
I disagree. I just have to slightly disagree. Just one.
I'm sorry.
When you say you're going to get things done, that reflects.
Excuse me, ma'am. We don't have
Come on, other people have questions too.
I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure the congressman will be around afterwards, and we would love to talk to you about it afterwards. But I do want to get to other questions. Dominic?
Congressman Van Hollen, what do you think is the core, the number one issue that needs to be addressed in the Senate race?
The number one issue is making sure that every child in the state of Maryland has an opportunity to be successful and achieve their full potential. And making sure that workers and families have that same opportunity too. So for what it means is making sure that every kid from the earliest age has the environment and the resources to make sure that they can grow and succeed, no matter where they live in the state. But it also requires an economy, as I said, that is designed to work for everybody. Right now, the economy is rigged in favor of people who are making money off of the 1%, which is why I put forward, and I urge everybody to go to our website or go to the Center for American Progress website, where I put forward a pretty detailed plan on how we can build an economy that works for every American, not just the folks at the very top. And that is a fundamental issue of making sure we live up to the promise of equal opportunity.
We have time for one more question. I am told, hopefully I'm told correctly, Congressman, you will be able to answer that. All right. So we have time for one more question. I'm going to look at you. Look at you. Yes. We'll go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering, in general, overall in any state, things that work for the state in general sometimes do not work for cities, the bigger cities that exist within the state. What are your plans for Baltimore City and to do with delivering housing, trash in the streets, education, medicine, things like that affect them every day? What are your plans for that?
So you're so absolutely right, because there's not like one size fits all answer for the whole state, right? In the Congress, you make policy for the country, but you need to make sure it's flexible enough to be able to help a city like Baltimore that's crying out for help. And that means finding ways to get more businesses to invest in Baltimore City, and not just where they already are, but in the areas of the city that are sort of most vacant and boarded up homes. We need to bring more jobs there. We also need to do a much better job, transportation-wise, of linking people from every neighborhood to where the jobs are. So we want to bring more jobs closer to where people live, but we also want to make sure people can get to those jobs. And community colleges and colleges play a vital role in this, because right now, as do high schools, we need to make sure that our students are getting the skills they need to to get hired, and we need to do a much better job of having the employers work with the community colleges and the schools so that the skills are developed to make sure that people have a job at the end of the day. In Baltimore City, we have really, there are two cities, and we need to work almost on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. And I've been spending a lot of time with community leaders and neighborhood associations, the people who are on the streets and in the neighborhoods, working to try to come up with plans, because one of the things that's become very clear is that you have too many elected officials who get in their silos, right? You've got people at the federal level, you got the people at the state level, you got the people in Baltimore City. And if you're a constituent in Baltimore City, it doesn't really matter to you whether your services are somehow coming from the city or the state or the federal government. You just want a job. And you just want a good paying job. And you want an opportunity to go to college. So one of the things I hope to do is to break down some of those barriers and literally bring people together, because the job of a senator is not just voting, it's not just talking, it's not even just about trying to form legislation. It's trying to get people together to solve problems. And in Baltimore City, it is a great city with huge potential, but there's a lot of work to do to make sure it achieves that. And so that's why I've been spending so much time in Baltimore City and came from there just now, because I think it's important to listen and talk to